Captain Underpants and the Terrifying Return of Tippy Tinkletrousers, the 9th epic novel by Dav Pilkey. In this video, I'll read chapter 26 to chapter 34, the rest of the story. Let's go right into it. Chapter 26. When Kipper gets angry, really angry. The next morning, George and Harlow's comic book pages were dry enough to staple together. George sprinkled each page with baby powder to make them look dusty and prehistoric. "Man," says Harlow, "these look like they came from the 1980s or something." Friday morning at school was turning out to be the worst day ever. All week long, George and Harlow had worked to make things better for their fellow kindergarteners, but they had only succeeded in turning Kipper and his gang into monsters. Kipper had told his friends about the shaving cream prank, and now they were really angry too. The four bullies knew somebody was pranking them, and they were going to make every kindergartner's life into Lurabo until they found out who it was. "Hey, where's my $8? Kipper yelled at Donnie Schomer, who happened to be the first kindergartner he saw on Friday morning. I thought you said $4, said Donnie. "I did," said Kipper, "but taxes just went up again. And they're gonna say hi until I find out the name of the person who's been pulling pranks on me." I don't know what it is," said Donnie. "Well, you better find out," Kipper growled. "Are you gonna stop being such a nice guy to you little twerps?" Kipper grabbed Donnie's money while his steps gave Donnie the worst wedgie of his life. "You owe me $4 more, yelled Kipper. "So bring $12 on Monday, or you're gonna wish you'd never been born." The rest of the kindergartners received similar treatment when they tried to enter the school. Unfortunately for them, nobody had any idea who was pranking Kipper and his friends. At lunchtime, the delivery guy from Pizza Place showed up. "Hey," shouted Kipper, "how come there's only 4 pizzas today?" "That's all Mr. Magee orders," said the delivery guy. "What a cheapskate," Kipper sneered. "Well, hand him over, bub." "Okay, but I need to give you warning," said the delivery guy. "These pizzas are really hot." "They better be hot, you Kipper. I hate cold pizza." Kipper yanked the pizzas out of the delivery guy's hands and headed towards the cafeteria with his friends. He kicked the lunchroom door open and strutted over to the kindergartner's table. Look at all the tasty pizzas we got," Kipper said to the hungry kids. "I'll bet you guys are starving." "Aw, that's so sad." Kipper, Buck, Luke, and Finkstain each grabbed a giant slice and crammed it into their mouths. The 4 bullies smiled obnoxiously as they chewed with wide, revoltingly cavernous mouths that showed every mushy glob of shiny, doggy goo. "Phew, that pizza's kinda hot," said Finkstain as he swallowed harshly and wiped some sweat off his forehead. Yeah, said Loogie. "This pizza's really hot." Ow, cried Kipper. "The pizza's way too hot." It burns, wailed Buck as he stuck out his tongue and tried to blow on it. Ooh. Suddenly, the bully's exaggerated smiles morphed into bug-eyed expressions of sheer horror. Quickly, they began wiping off their tongues with their filthy hands, but it was too late. The ghost chilies had already done their damage. Kipper and his terror-stricken buddies stampeded to the drinking fountain, waving their arms and shrieking like a cackle of panicked hyenas. They pushed and shoved each other into a desperate attempt to splash cold water onto their tongues. Kipper wasn't having much success at the drinking fountain, so he bolted to the milk table. There he began clawing the tiny half-pint milk cartons open, one after the other, and splashing the milk into his face. The other 3 thugs followed, shoving and jabbing and kicking each other as they tore the tiny cartons with their teeth and sprayed the milk onto their gaping, smoldering mouths. When the milk was gone, the 4 bullies dropped to the floor, grunting and wailing and crying for their mommies as they licked up all the milk that had spilled during their lacto-guzzling frenzy. The entire event had been filmed by about 20 kids on their cell phones, and the embarrassing videos were all posted online. before the end of lunch period. Kipper, Bug, Louie, and Finstein all spent the next 2 hours in the nurse's room, holding ice packs on their tongues and crying like toddlers. They started to feel better just as the school day was ending and wrestling practice was about to begin. Chapter 27. Something Wedgie this way comes. At 2:45 p.m., when the final bell rang, George and Harlow ran to their secret restroom stall and grabbed 2 empty glass jelly jars. Then they headed out toward the groundskeeper's shed. There were always a ton of spiders back there. George and Harlow worked very hard to safely capture as many as they could. "Gotta hurry," said George. "It looks like it's going to rain." Once they had collected about 20 harmless garden spiders each, they ran back upstairs to the lockers in the empty hallway. Harold held a piece of paper under one of the lower vent slots of Kipper's locker. George opened his glass jelly jar and sprinkled some spiders onto the paper as Harold blew softly. About 10 spiders gently slid across the paper and through the slot, disappearing into the darkened depths of Kipper's locker. Next, they moved on to Louie's, Bug's, and Finstein's lockers, gently blowing an instrument of 8-legged residents into their vents too. George and Harold knew that it takes about an hour for a spider to build a completed web. They looked at the clock on the wall and realized they had only 44 minutes until wrestling practice was over. "I hope these spiders work fast," said Harold. "You gotta work fast too," said George. "There's still a lot of stuff to be done." The 2 boys gathered some supplies and sneaked into the boys' locker room next to the gym. Harold found Kipper's deodorant stick, pulled off the cap, and twisted the yawl on the bottom until the deodorant stuck all the way out of the canister. George pulled the thick white deodorant off and threw it into the garbage can. Then he opened a package of extra spicy jalapeno cream cheese and began packing it into the plastic deodorant canister with a spoon. When the canister was filled, Harold molded the cream cheese into shape with his fingers, then popped the cap back on. George put the deodorant back in Kipper's gym locker. Kipper's gym locker next to his soap and his towel, while Harold started working on Louie's deodorant. It took about 30 minutes, but soon George and Harold had transformed all 4 of the boys' deodorant sticks into jalapeno cream cheese applicators. Once everything was back where it belonged, George and Harold rushed to their secret stall in the boys' restroom. Time was running out. George climbed onto his stilts as Harold gathered the ancient-looking comics and an old walkie-talkie. Quickly, the 2 friends sneaked out to the hallway and got to work. Harold slid a comic book through one of the lower vent slots of each bully's locker, while George placed the walkie-talkie on top of the locker, then pumped up the volume. They finished just as wrestling practice ended. Dark clouds were beginning to gather outside, and a distant thunder could be heard rumbling miles away. A terrible storm was coming. Meanwhile, back in the locker room, Kipper and the Stuffs changed their clothes, smeared on some deodorant, and strutted out to their lockers. Lightning was beginning to flash outside, filling the school windows with crackling bursts of fluorescence. The 4 hooligans unlocked their locker doors and swung them open, just as a defending thunderclap rocked the school hallway. Crash! The terror-stricken tyrant stared in horrified astonishment after a spiderweb caged compartments. Luigi, who had a severely intense fear of spiders, was the first one to freak out. "The lockers haunted! Spiders!" was all he could manage to verbalize as an ear-splitting smash of thunder rattled the school. The 4 ruffians shrieked in panic. Luigi was losing it. He flicked his hands wildly as he stood in place, leaning from side to side, impulsively raising one knee to his chest and then the other. We gotta get out of here, dudes, he sobbed. Seriously, we gotta get out of here, dudes. Seriously, dudes, we gotta get out of here, dudes. Just a minute, Kipper protested. What's this? He reached carefully into his web-choked locker and pulled out an ancient-looking comic book. I don't know, said Finstein, but I got one too. Me too, said Bug. Luigi would have added that he also had one in his locker, yet became too frightened to speak. All he could manage was short bursts of scream as he spaz danced around the hallway, twitching and jerking like a demented chicken. Kipper opened the antique comic and began to read aloud as turbulent thunder rumbled around them. Chapter 28, The Curse of Wedgie Magee, a true story. Once upon a really long time ago, there was a kindergartner named Wedgie Magee. That's me. He always got bullied by a bunch of bullies. Ha ha ha. They gave them lots of wedgies. Ouchies. They stole his money too. One day, he just couldn't make it no more. He went to see a Jessie lady. She looked into her crystal ball. I see you are very sad. No, duh. I get wedgies all the time. I'll give you a magic potion that will help you. But she forgot her glasses. She grabbed the wrong bottle. Just pour this on your pants before your next wedgie and you will be saved. Hooray! The next day, the police came by. It's time for a wedgie. No way! Wedgie Magee poured the potion in his pants. But then, oh no! His pants disappeared. Poor Wedgie Magee pants be a ghost. But nobody was scared. Ha 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 ha. Wedgie Magee was so naked that he died of embarrassment. Goodbye, crew wrote, ha ha ha, clunk. But that night, Wedgie's haunted pants came back for revenge. It followed the first bully home from school. I don't know why, but I feel like playing with dollies today. It's because you're cursed, young man. Wedgie's haunted pants got closer and closer. If only white ectoplasm. I am the haunted pants of Wedgie Magee. This is for giving wedgies much. Then the pants came to the second bully's house. Ow! How does my food taste hot and spicy all of a sudden? It's because you're haunted, son. I am the haunted pants of Wedgie Magee. Crash. Yeah, this is for stealing money. Then he came to the third bully's house when he was in bed. I wonder how come my armpits are all burny. It's cause you got the Voo Hex. I am the haunted pants of Wedgie Magee. Yeah, see, I told you. Munch. This is for being mean for kindergartners. Once Wedgie Magee was revenged, his pants became at peace. But beware to whoever is mean to kindergartners from now on. Don't make me come back, okay? Bonus section. How to tell if you got cursed. You start acting all weird and stuff. You want to play with dollies and dresses and bracelets. You get ectoplasm on your stuff and spiders too. Often food like pizza tastes all hot and burns your mouth and stuff. Your armpits get all burny and stuff. Had to undo this curse. You must undo all the bad stuff you did and never pick on nobody ever again. Chapter 29, The Perfect Storm. It was getting dark now and the storm outside was intensifying. The four bullies stared in knee-melting terror at the dusty, ancient comic and Kipper's trembling hands. Their mouths hung open in shock, but they were too afraid to move. Finally, Finstein began spastically scratching his sweat-soaked armpits. Dudes, he blurted, we're dead, man. It's over. Game over, man. Buck began to cry. My pits are burning, man, he sobbed. I think I got the curse. Me too, Luigi shrieked as tears poured down his face. Kipper looked into the quivering eyes of his three terrified friends. His armpits were burning as well, but he was too frightened to admit it. Suddenly, a deafening blast of thunder shook the building. The light bulb in the school flickered twice, and the bullies held each other and sobbed uncontrollably. Inside the restroom, George and Horror could hear their arch enemy shrieking out in the hallway, and the two friends tried as hard as they could to keep from laughing. They both knew if they started, they'd never be able to stop. Horror picked up his walkie-talkie and pressed the transmit button. The toy walkie-talkie on top of the lockers clicked with the crackle of static. "I'm the hunted passive Wedgie, Magee," whispered Harold over the tiny speaker. "Hey!" cried Kipper. Did you guys hear that? "I'm coming for you," Harold whispered. No, screamed Luigi, was now running around a small circle, punching his head with his fists for some strange reason. Lightning exploded again, and the hallways rumbled with thunder. The four bullies had now become completely unhinged. The bug dropped to the floor and curled up into a shivering ball, crying out for his mother to come and save him. "Leave us alone!" Kipper screamed, swinging his fists in the air. "We're sorry!" Mr. Crab was in the middle of a teacher's meeting all the way on the other end of the building when he heard the screaming. "It sounds like Kipper's freaking out again," he growled, slamming his fist on the table. "And I'm going to get to the bottom of it." He got up from the meeting and stomped out of the room. Kipper and his friends heard the pounding sounds of stomping feet coming from the other side of the school building. Boom, 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 boom. The stomping got louder and louder and closer and closer. "Let's hide in the bathroom," screamed Luigi through his tears. Immediately, the four frightened friends scrambled for the bathroom door. Inside the bathroom, George and Harold were still getting ready for their final prank. Harold stayed at the wooden stools while George pulled the tall pair of pants up over his head. The two kindergartners didn't know they were about to be ambushed. "Can't see," said George. "Here," said Harold. "Let me." Suddenly, the restroom door crashed open and the terrified police tumbled inside. They looked like Harold holding onto the giant pair of pants in front of them. Lightning pierced the darkened clouds and everyone froze. The stomping footsteps came closer and closer. Boom, 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 boom. "What are you doing with those pants, kid?" cried Kipper. Harold couldn't think of a thing to say. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. They weren't ready. For a split second, Harold saw his entire life flash before his eyes. He and George were going to get caught. Their lives were about to end. The footsteps in the hallway got even louder. Boom, 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 boom. George knew they were in trouble. He couldn't see, but he grabbed the stilts anyway and took a blind, wobbly step forward. The bullies beheld what appeared to be a pair of pants walking by themselves. They grasped each other and shrieked in ear-splitting horror. "Get away from those pants, kids!" cried Bug. "Get away from those pants!" Then, as if an angel had whispered it into his ear, Harold thought of the perfect thing to say. "What pants?" he asked. Boom! Suddenly, time seemed to stand still. Boom! The four bullies stepped back in horror. Boom! Their eyes grew impossibly wide. Boom! They opened their mouths to scream. Boom! But not a sound came out. Boom! George took another step toward the bullies. Boom! As they clawed out the wall behind them. Boom! Then the lightning flashed again. And everything went dark. The terrible storm had knocked out a power line nearby, and the school was now completely black. Kipper and his thugs scrambled over each other, desperately trying to make their way through the restroom door. Mr. Crow was to be their next obstacle. They finally reached the lockers when the lights went out. His elephanty footsteps had stopped cold, and he stood in the darkness, breathing heavily and sweating abundantly. When the four squealing derelicts finally tumbled out of the restroom and bolted down the dark hallway, he smashed right into him. Nobody would be able to blame the bullies for what they did next. In profoundly perfect perception, they must have believed that Mr. Crow was some kind of giant wet fleshy monster. They treated him as such. Screeching and wailing in the darkness, they kicked and clobbered the warm, wet, bulbous creature with all the strength they had. The four distressed delinquents then tumbled down the stairs and shoved their way through the back door of the school. They ran across the football field toward their homes. Something about Kipper and his friends changed forever. They would never again be the same despicable bullies they once were. Chapter 30. The wonderful, happy, incredibly delightful ending. Monday morning was a very stressful time for Donnie Schumer. He had not been able to scrape up the $12 he owed Kipper, so he was trying to sneak into the school through the back door without being noticed. Kipper saw him. "Hey kid," yelled Kipper, "wait up, I got something for you." Then Donnie pulled out the door, but it was locked. He kept pulling and pulling anyway as Kipper approached. "Got some money for you," said Kipper nervously. He reached into his pocket and handed Donnie a crinkled $5 bill. Donnie stopped pulling at the door and looked at the money in Kipper's hand. "Is this a trick?" Donnie asked. "No," Kipper said. "I'm really sorry I took money from you, kid. I'm gonna pay you back every dollar as soon as I can. Okay?" Okay," said Donnie. He took the $5 bill from Kipper's hand and rushed to the front door of the school. This morning had turned out a lot different than he had expected. All around the school, the other kindergartners were having similar experiences. Fifteen was not only passing out money, he was also offering to carry every kindergarten's book back to class. Book was handing out cash and free bubble gum, and Lukey was distributing dollars and letting the kindergartners give him as many widgets as they wanted. Kipper and his three friends eventually paid back all the money they had stolen, and they never bullied another person for as long as they lived. Once George and Harry were certain that their enemies had truly been reformed, they called off the vengeful wrath of Wedgie Magee. The terrifying curse had finally been lifted. Everyone was happy and all was well with the road. I'd like to tell you that this is the end of our story. I really would, but I can't. Because this wonderful, happy, incredibly delightful ending is what was supposed to happen. Now what actually did happen. Remember back in chapter 8 when Tippy Tinkletrousers was fighting Captain Underpants and he accidentally threw his giant Roblox to the school's football field? Well, if you recall, Tippy got out of this jam by zapping himself back in time exactly 5 years earlier. Now see if you can guess which night occurred exactly 5 years earlier. If you guessed the night of the terrible thunderstorm that forever changed the lives of Kipper and his buddies, you'd be correct. Unfortunately, by some wild and tragic coincidence, Tippy sent himself and his gigantic rubber pants back in time to the very moment when Kipper and his friends were running across the football fields toward their home. Ignoring the cautious wisdom of the banana cream pie paradox, Tippy's reckless journey back through time would end up making one small, seemingly insignificant change. And this one teeny tiny bitsy change would eventually destroy all hope for the future of our civilization. As much as I hate to do it, let's go back to the darkened hallway of the fateful Stormy night and find out what really happened. Four distressed delinquents then tumbled down the stairs and shoved their way through the back door after school. As they ran across the football field toward their homes, something about Kipper and his friends changed forever. They would never again be the same despicable bullies they once were. Chapter 31 did the terrible, sad, incredibly horrifying ending. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a ball of blue lightning appeared in front of them. It grew bigger and bigger until it exploded in a blinding flash. And there, where the ball of lightning had been, stood a giant pair of robotic pants. "But that was a close one," said Tippy from inside the depths of his giant rubber pants. "Captain Underpants is a lot stronger than I thought." Tippy unzipped the zipper out of his time-traveling trousers and looked out at the world of 5 years ago. He saw the raging thunderstorm and the 4 6th graders who stood trembling beneath his giant robotic feet. "Hey!" shouted Tippy. "What's wrong with you kids? You look like you've just seen a ghost." "It's the haunted past of Wedgie Magee," screamed Frankenstein, pointing up at Tippy's gigantic, darkened silhouette. Kipper and his buddies screamed so loud and so high only dogs could hear them. What happened next is what physiologists commonly refer to as going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. The 4 6th graders fell to their knees, shaking, twitching, and uttering complete nonsense as their fragile eggshell mice began to shout. "Cried Kipper as he frantically slapped himself into the face again and again. Buck tore off his clothes and began dancing the hula while singing "I'm a Little Teapot" as loud as he could. Luigi started digging a hole in the ground with his teeth, gathering up enormous fistfuls of dirt and warmth. Poor thing staying just laughing maniacally, happily banging its head into the grass over and over and over and over. Willie's go bananas. "Boy," said Tippy, "kids sure were weird 5 years ago." He quickly reset the controllers of the Tippy Tinkle time travel meter to 4 years in the future and pressed the "Away we go" button. Suddenly, giant sparks of blue lightning shot out from the Underpants. Several special effects filled moments later. A blinding flash lit up the sky, and Tippy and his Underpants disappeared. The next day, the 4 treble 6th graders were admitted to the Piqua Valley home for the reality challenge. An investigation into their mental breakdowns led police straight to Mr. Crumb, who bruised and battered the body, made everyone very suspicious. The cops naturally assumed that Mr. Crumb was somehow behind all of this insanity. Although no formal charges were filed against Mr. Crumb, everyone blamed him away. Mr. Crumb got fired a few weeks later, and he never worked as an elementary school principal again. Chapter 32. 4 years later. 4 years later, a giant spear of blue lightning spread on what used to be an elementary school football field. Soon, the spear exploded in a blinding flash of light, leaving Tippy and his gigantic Underpants behind. Tippy peeked out of the zipper and discovered that Earth had been destroyed. He crawled out of his giant Underpants and shuffled through the shattered city, inspecting the chaos all around him. The landscape was littered with massive moon rocks, skeletal skyscrapers, and torn-up toilets. "What the heck happened here?" Tippy cried. When the morning sun rose above the horizon, Tippy finally saw sign of life. A little preschooler was walking up a burning boulevard with his mother. "Hey kid," yelled Tippy, "what happened here? How did Earth get destroyed?" "Well," said the little boy, "a few weeks ago, some guy in a Doubler blew up the moon and tried to take over the road. But a week later, a bunch of talking toilets attacked the city and ate him up. Then, a week after that, a spaceship landed on top of the elementary school, and all the kids got turned into giant evil zombie nerds. Sure wish you would stop obsessing over such foolish nonsense," the boy's mother said. "But what about Captain Underpants?" asked Tippy. "Who's that?" said the boy. "Ain't that fat, bald superhero," said Tippy. "No, the guy with the underwear and the red cape. What happened to him?" "I've never seen anyone like that," said the little boy. Suddenly, Tippy realized what a terrible mistake he had made. Somehow he changed things in the past, which had resulted in the destruction of both Captain Underpants and Earth. "Let's go back and undo what I did," cried Tippy. "I must go back in time to save Captain Underpants." "Quickly, little boy," screamed Tippy. "Tell me everything you know about those zombie nerds who have taken over the road." "Well," said the little boy, "they're really strong and they're really powerful." Yes, said Tippy. "What else are they?" "They're right behind you," said the boy. Tippy turned and looked up. They're standing behind them were 2 of the biggest, evilest looking zombie nerds anyone had ever seen. One of the zombie nerds raised his foot above Tippy's head. "No," screamed Tippy. "Can't kill me. I'm the only chance this road has of ever returning to normal." Chapter 33. To make a long story short. Splat! Chapter 34. The end of the road as we know it. When the horrible zombie nerd raised his foot again, all that remained was a red squishy stain. And that, dear readers, is the unfortunate end of Captain Underpants' saga. Dr. Doubler blew up the moon. Talking tools attacked, and zombie nerds took over Earth. Captain Underpants wasn't there to save the road because Mr. Crumb wasn't there to get hypnotized by Jordan Harrold. All of the epic adventures we've come to know and love never actually happened. And now, the only chance of making things right again has just been obliterated. It was great sadness that I must tell you, this is the final chapter of the last Captain Underpants epic novel. There will be no more Captain Underpants adventures. The end. Yeah. You have 3 novels left, guys. Don't get tricked by it, alright? This doesn't end. I'm also going to upload the 10th epic novel, the 11th novel, the 12th novel. I'm gonna finish Captain Underpants, and I'm not gonna stop from here. So yeah, don't think that this is the last book just because the story said it so. You know that there are 12 books of Captain Underpants. I hope I can see you in the next one and see you in the 10th book. Take care, guys.